Do Abyssal Torah.
Yep.
What? Fine, but no YouTube. And then when I tell you it's bedtime, it's bedtime. Teacher and keep up. My son's trying to stay up late, so he wants to come to the Torah class, you know? All right. Okay, let's start with a Hanukkah song. Here's one. על הניסים ועל הפורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה על הניסים ועל הפורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה על הניסים ועל הבורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה אוי על הניסים ועל הבורקן ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה בימים ההם בזמן הזה The miracles of Hanukkah, always a miracle. Okay, good evening, Elliot. Chag Sameach. You're on mute. Elliot's on mute, I can't hear.
All right, well, perfect. Happy first day.
So just a little Zoom trick. I don't know if you know this, but if you're on meetings and you're on mute, you can hit the space bar, and the space bar temporarily takes off your mute if you touch the space bar and speak. It's a good little trick to have to mute and unmute. It's obviously only if you're on a computer. So, Parshat Vayeshev, one of the most intense parshas, maybe in the entire Torah. Action-packed, to say the least.
Coffee.
The meeting ID is 634. 7114. Here, I'll give you a. My son wants to join our class from his own computer. The ID.
You know, it's amazing how you read these parshot and they teach you what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Just by reading it. Like a couple of weeks ago, we read about lack of communication. So in order to achieve a final result, one person had to deceive another person. And it was all because of lack of communication.
Right.
And here it was just plain jealousy. So
here maybe we could have used a more lack of communication, because maybe if they didn't communicate so much, they wouldn't have hated him so much. But we'll see. Really a crazy, crazy story, followed by an even crazier story that seems to come out of left field. And we'll see how much we do. Right, so just to put into perspective, Yaakov reconciles with Esav, or Esav seemingly reconciles with Yaakov. They then part ways, and here we are, the word Vayeshev. Yaakov comes to settle the land, but it also denotes this feeling of a little time has passed, right? Vayeshev Yaakov, Yaakov returns. Vayeshev, he sat, right? Literally sat, shav, to sit. Be'eretz Migurei Aviv, comes to settle the land of his fathers in Canaan. Ele Toldot Yaakov. This is the lineage of Yaakov. Yosef is 17 years old. He tended the herds with his brothers. Vehu na'ar et bnei Bilha ve'bnei Zilpah. And he seems to hang out with the sons of Bilha and Zilpah, more so than the sons of Leah, who are, of course, all wives of his father. Vayeshev et dibatam ra'a el avihem. And it seems that Yosef was a bit of a squealer, and he would come tell his father all the bad things that the brothers were doing. Right? My kids call this a tattletale, right, Shaya? And even kids today say don't appreciate a tattletale. That is for sure. V'Yisrael ahav et Yosef mikol banav, and Yisrael, of course, we're talking about Yaakov, who had his name changed, loved Yosef from all his sons, black and white. There's no doubt about it. Kiven sekunimu, hulo, he was a son of his old age. So the Torah is giving us maybe a little bit of insight why Yaakov loved Yosef perhaps the most. He was his baby. He was his, Yaakov was, getting up in years. And maybe that last kid, I mean, it's not that you love a baby more, but perhaps when they're babies, it's like a different kind of love. I'm actually experiencing that right now. It's not more or less. It's different. But here clearly the Torah says mikol banav.
But a parent is not supposed to love one child more than another. However, it seems like it plays out like it did on the last chapter.
First of all, it seems like it plays out in every generation, right? We have Yitzchak and Ishmael, we have Yaakov and Esav, and now we have it's like, this like broken record. It seems like it's like we can't,
we can't shake it. However, it's not the right thing to do. Listen, you have 4 children, okay, and you cannot love one more than the other. And right now, the baby's taking more of your time.
But I will tell you that the love for a baby is different. It's because they're the baby. It's that smell. It's that closeness. It's that bonding. It's not more or less. It's just different, Anyway.
Binyamin was the baby, no?
Binyamin was the baby and is the baby.
But he's 17 now.
No, that's just...
Yeah, that's 17. Yeah. I don't know. So actually, Rashi has a comment. Ben zikunim hu lo means... that Yosef actually looked like Yaakov. That Yaakov saw himself in Yosef.
Right.
And it could be that the fact that all the brothers hated him. Maybe Yaakov identified with that, But of course, the brothers saw it also. And they hate Vayisneu oto in Pasuk 4. They hated him. V'lo yachlu dabro l'shalom. They were unable to speak peacefully to him. Vayachalom Yosef. Chalom Yosef had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. And he says to them, "Listen to this dream, asher chalamti. Listen to this dream that I just dreamt. Here we were, anachnu me'almim alumim. We are sheaves of wheat, betoch hasadeh, in the field. Vehine kama alumati v'gam nintzava. Vehine tesuben alumotechem. And all these me'almim stood up. And yours bowed down to mine. Right? Not what the brothers wanted to hear. And the brothers answer, Hamaloch timloch aleinu. What? You think you're gonna rule over us, right? Melech Hamaloch timloch aleinu. Im mashol timshol banu. This is you're gonna make an example of us. Vayosifu od sno oto, and they hated him even more. This is the third time that this is coming around. The third level of hate. Al chalamotav, on it because of his dreams, the al dvarav, and what he would say. And he has another dream. Vaysaper oto lechav, and he tells his brothers again. Maybe Yosef should have kept his mouth shut. And he says, Chalamti chalam od. I had another one. And here we are, the sun and the moon and 11 stars are bowing down to me. And he tells his father and he tells his brothers, and here was something very interesting. Vayigar bo aviv. Yaakov rebuked him. Vayomer lo, and he says to him, Ma hacholam hazeh asher chalamto? What, you think your mother and I and your brothers will bow down to you? First of all, Rachel, who is his mother, died, right? So Rashi comments here that Yaakov is trying to dismiss the dreams, that he sees the brothers are angry, and Yaakov is trying to dismiss the dreams to make the brothers not so angry. So by saying imcha, it was almost as if he was calling the dream silly. Of course it's not going to happen because your mom died already. But what Rashi was saying is that Yosef was actually dreaming about Bilhah. And Bilhah was like a surrogate mother to him after Rachel died. And the brothers get jealous. Vayikanu bo echav. They were jealous. Ve'aviv shamar et hadavar. And the father, very interesting phrase here. I'm not exactly sure. Guarded it, maybe kept it inside. What does he say here? Kept the matter in his mind. And the brothers go out to tend to the flock. And Yaakov says to Yosef, why don't you join them? And Yosef replies, Hineni. Okay, Shai, I think it's time for you to go to bed. Okay, Laila Tov, love you. Shabbat Shalom. He was sending me silly messages by chat. Yaakov sends Yosef to join his brothers near Shechem, maybe as a way, maybe if they hang out a little more, maybe they'll get along, right? And he says to Yosef, Lech na'arei et shlomecha, go see how your brothers are doing and how the cattle are doing. V'hashiveni davar, and come tell me what's going on. Vayishlacheu me'emek Chevron vayavo Shechem, and he sends him to the valley of Chevron, and where he can come to Shechem. Elliot?
Do you think that maybe Joseph was a spy on the other brothers? Okay, as opposed to, and the brothers knew that he was spying on them for their father to make sure that they were working and not playing around?
Quite possibly.
Why else would he send them out to see his sons?
Well, he says, "V'hashiveni davar, come tell me what's happening."
But why? He doesn't trust them, or is he curious?
So I'll tell you, Rashi says a few times that, first of all, we just read a few psukim ago that Yosef used to tell on his brothers on all the things that they were doing. So what are these things that they were doing? Rashi explains that and we're now talking about more the sons of Leah, okay? And the Torah also says that he would hang out more with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. So I think by that Rashi deduces that it was really the sons of Leah were, and it was, and he says that they would sin, they would eat from the animals before the animals were dead. And there was at least one or two other things that Yosef would tell, and even though the Torah has not been given, there's a general opinion that is, widely accepted that Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, knew the Torah and had Ruach HaKodesh and had divine, intuition and kept the Torah. So even though there wasn't the written Torah yet, there was still this these laws, because essentially the Torah is a book of laws. And they knew Tsar Balei Chaim and the rules of not eating from a live animal. And so this was not just, hey, Shimon, called me a name. It was like he was telling on them like they were up to no good. They were being influenced by the Ishmaelim. And he would tell his father. So I think that he was being sent as a spy. He was being sent. Make sure your brothers are okay, maybe, because who knows what they're up to. I mean, you would think that you would go graze the cattle. It's not like you would go for the day. I think you'd probably go for weeks at a time, and you would go on these the plains, and they go for days and days to go eat, and so who knows what, so yeah, so he was saying, go spy on your brothers. And so Yosef goes like a good boy, and he's on his way, and he bumps into an Ish. Right, and this is not the first time that we see this elusive Ish. Historically, it's been an angel. And he asks the Ish asks him, "What do you tavakesh? What are you asking for, or looking for?" And Yosef says, "Et achai anochi mevakesh." I am asking for my brothers. Do you know where they are? Do you know where they're shepherding? And the Ish says that they left here. Ki shamati omrim nelcha dotanya. And I heard them say that they were going to go towards Datan. And Yosef goes after them, and he finds them in Dotan. And here we go. Vayiru oto merachok, and they see him coming from afar. Uveterem ikrav elehem, vayitnaklu, and they conspire to kill him. And Ish said to Achiv, and they said to each other, Hine bala chalamot halazeba. Here comes this, dreamer. And now, let's kill him, and we'll toss him into a hole, and we'll say, Chaya ra'a chaltu, and we'll say that a beast ate him up. And then we'll see about his dreams, right? V'nireh ma yu chalamotav. And Reuven speaks up and says, let's not kill him. Al tishpechu dam, let's not literally spill his blood. Hashlichu oto el habor hazeh, let's throw him into the hole. Asher bamidbar, that's in the desert. V'yad al tishlechu bo, but we're not going to raise our hands to him. Leman hatziloto miyadam lashivo laviv, and because he was going to come save him and bring him back to his father. And what happens when he comes? Vayavshitu et Yosef et kutanto. They take his shirt, that lovely shirt Yaakov made him, et ketonat hapasim asher alav, the proverbial coat of many colors. I think pasim really means sleeves. But it was clearly a nice article of clothing, nicer than what his brothers had. And they rip it off him. Vayikachuhu vayashlichu oto habora, and they take him and they throw him into the pit. The haborek, and the pit was empty, and there was no water. Just Rashi comments here on the excessive use of words, which is very typical Rashi, that the Torah didn't have to say both these things. Obviously, if the hole is empty, that then there's no water. Why does the Torah then explain further that there's no water?
It was a well.
It was a well that had no water, but Rashi says what it did have, which doesn't count. It was sort of part of the floor, were snakes and scorpions, but there was no water. I don't know if you've seen Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark, but that scene where he goes down into the Ark with his confrere, and his friend is like, "How come the floor is moving?" And he goes, "I don't think the floor is moving," and he shines a light or a candle, and it's all snakes. And they throw him in there, and they get a little hungry. It's really, you can really build up an appetite throwing someone into a hole. And they sit down to eat bread. There's a group of Yishmaelim that are coming from the area of Gilad. And they have camels, nochot utzri, valot, holchim lehorid mitzrayma. And they have all these sort of spices that they're taking down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, no doubt to sell and to trade, as Egypt was the certainly the commercial center, and they had all these things that they were going to sell. So here comes Yehuda.
Ask something.
Sure.
Okay, so they know they're Yishmaelites. Did they consider them like relatives?
Right, they're like cousins, right?
So, like they recognize them as Ishmaelites? Would they have known who they were and known of the connection there?
I would think 100%. Because you got to figure that they're only second cousin. Like, it's not that far removed. But I would think that, people had so many wives and so many kids, and they were so spread out. It's not like today where you like call your cousins on the phone. It's like, like they probably didn't know them, but they knew like who they were because, the Ishmaelim probably wore a certain type of clothing and had a certain type of, look or dress, or, traveled a certain way that they knew that it was from them. And I would think that they certainly knew their lineage, for sure. I would assume. And Yehuda says,
specifies that they're Yishmaelites.
I'm sorry?
Maybe that's why the Torah says that they're Yishmaelites, and it doesn't say, oh, just a bunch of people coming. Because they would have known who they were.
Yeah. Soon it's going to be Midianites. And Yehuda says, Ma betzakina harog et achinu. What benefit do we get just from killing v'chisinu et amo and covering his blood? Let's sell him. Lechu v'nimkerenu leishmaelim. V'yadeinu al tehibo ki achinu b'sarenu hu. And actually here Yehuda has a bit of honor And let's not raise our hand, because he is our brother. B'sareinu, he is our flesh. Vayishmeu echav, and the brothers listened. Of course, Yehuda is honored for this. As is Reuven. And we will see in a few weeks what the reward is, or what one of the rewards is. And here we go. So it's not only Yishmaelim. Now we have Midyanim. Vayavru anashim, and then the Yishmaelim sell him to the Midyanim. V'imshichu vayalu et Yosef min habor v'imkeru et Yosef liYishmaelim b'esrim kasef v'aviu et Yosef mitzrayma. Rashi says that this pasuk teaches us that he was sold numerous times, because Midyanim and Yishmaelim are not the same thing. So it seems a bit odd that they're. So he explains that he was first sold to the Yishmaelim, and the Yishmaelim then sold to the Midyanim, and the Midyanim end up selling to Potiphar, who we will probably meet very shortly.
Adam, there must be some sort of a timeline, how long it took for Joseph to be into the pit till he was sold in Egypt. Because nowhere does it, I mean, like they do it in one sentence,
Yeah,
or two sentences, and
I know with jail until he comes to Paro, with there's 7 years plus 2. I forget, but I will definitely. I think it ends up being 22 years.
no, but the time that he was thrown into the pit, so the time that he was sold to Egypt, to Potiphar, okay, it had to be many years.
Yeah.
Okay, because he was sold back and forth, because that's what the traders did. They kept selling back and forth.
I don't know it offhand. I will certainly look into it.
Okay, but it has to be just by.
But I would have it was years.
Going back and
Why
forth.
why would it be many years? I mean, they would have wanted to make a profit as soon as possible, no? So I don't think they would have held on to him for a long time.
I do remember seeing a timeline. It didn't specify just the pit and being sold, but there are time markers that explain from the time that he enters the pit. I think the first timeline was the first time that he comes to meet Paro. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was this number 22 years pops into my head. But I don't.
He was 17 and 22. He was 39. He was 39 years old when he started to.
Don't quote me on that. That's something.
No, okay, no, but the idea was that it didn't happen like over a period of 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
No, I don't think so either.
Come on, so it had to be years. You disagree, Tammy?
I think it would have taken time for him to travel from Canaan to Egypt, so that may have been the timeline there, but I don't see why the traders would have held on to him for years. I mean, they would have taken him so that they could sell him to somebody else and get money for him. So
right, but Rashi says from that verse that he was sold many times.
Well, actually, it says in verse 27, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. But in verse 28, it said the Midianite men pulled him out of the pit and they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites. So I don't really understand what's going on. It's like going back and forth.
That's exactly it. Oh, I had such a hard time with this part of the parsha, okay, understanding it until I read the same thing that Adam just told us, that Rashi, according to Rashi, Joseph was sold several times. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different sources, and only one of them came to that conclusion. The other 3 just said they were one and the same tribe, and it didn't make sense. Okay, so it had to be over many years, and it had to be different tribes of a different set of merchants, from Ishmaelites to Midianites. So,
Sell him back and forth?
oh yeah, like you said, what are they doing? That was their livelihood. They walked through the desert, buying and selling.
Okay, so first of all, here, Rashi says,
Yeah, number 28.
in reference to Midianites, this was another caravan, and so Scripture indicates he was sold several times.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
In terms of a timeline, I just saw something else.
Actually, here I have the English Rashi. It says, the sons of Jacob pulled Yosef out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites to the Midianites, and the Midianites to Egypt.
Right, that's how I understood it.
But that's not what it says in the Torah. You
Ah.
just read that the Midianites pulled him out of the Midianite merchantmen passed by and pulled Joseph up out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites, for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph to Egypt. Then verse number 28.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Midianites pulled him out before the brothers got back to the pit to pull them out and sell it to the Ishmaelites that were coming along. Anyway, it's a little confusing because it's very condensed. It's like Reader's Digest.
So here we see, so if we do some math, Rashi says it's 22 years from the time Yaakov goes down to Egypt, from the time Yosef leaves until the time Yaakov goes down to Egypt. So that's where I got the number 22 years. He was 17 in when he goes to his brothers, and he's 30 years old when he comes to stand to Paro.
7 years. Okay, right. Okay. So he was 30. Okay, it makes sense.
13 years, which would include being sold, right? Being sold, traded, whatever. And then working inside Potiphar's house. And then going to jail.
Okay. Well,
So
we're getting.
Right, so we're closer.
So it was about 15 years.
I think also we know he was in jail for 2 years. I think that is in the Torah somewhere. But yeah, this is the exciting part about learning Torah, is sort of figuring out all these.
Yeah, because they leave out. Not only do they leave out words, they leave out sentences and paragraphs.
Sure.
And that's okay. I used to write like that.
So it seems that Reuven wasn't with them for the meal, and he returns and finds the pit empty, and he rips his clothing as a sign of mourning. He thinks Yosef is dead, and he's fearful. Don't forget, he's the Bechor, he is the firstborn, and he's afraid he's going to be the one that gets it from his father. And they take the ketonet, they take the shirt, Vayishchatu seir izim, and they slaughter a goat, Vayitbelu et kutonet badam, and they dip it in the blood. And they send it to the father, and they say, Zot matzanu, this is what we found. Hakerna haktonet binchahi, is this not the ketonet of your son? And of course, Yaakov recognized it, and he says, ketonet b'ni, this is my son's shirt. Chaya ra'ah, a wild animal ate him. Tarof toraf, he was torn apart. this guy Yaakov has not had a very easy life. Vaikra Yaakov simlotav, and he rips his clothing, and he puts a sack, a shiva garment, vayitabel al benoya, and he mourns for his son many days. And all of his children try to comfort him. Vayomer ki ered el beni avel sheola. I am going down to hell, Sheol. Vayefk oto aviv. Yaakov is clearly destroyed. And the Midianim sell Yosef in Egypt to Potiphar, who was an officer of Paro. Sar hatabachim. He was the officer that had the seal. He was like a heavy duty guy. Sar hatabachim was the chief steward.
Yeah, in my translation, it says chief of the slaughterers.
Chief of the slaughterers.
Yeah, those who slaughter the king's animals.
Okay. What's tabachim? How would that be slaughters?
It says shoftei behemot hamelach.
Yeah. Shoftei?
Shoftei behemot hamelach.
Yeah. So he was he sounds like he was the shochet of
Chamberlain of the butchers.
Wow. I think I'm going to pause here this week, because we then come into the story, and I urge you, if you don't know the story, continue to read it, of Yehuda and Tamar. A very unbelievable story. That of course ends with the birth of a child named Peretz, a name I'm sure you've heard. And we often refer to Mashiach as Ben Partzi, like we sing in Lecha Dodi Friday nights. Al Yad Ish Ben Partzi, from the lineage of Peretz and Judah will come Mashiach. But really an unbelievable story. And then, of course, the parsha ends, I believe, with the story of the baker and the bartender, who are in jail, and Yosef interprets their dreams, and the Sar HaMashkim, as he's called, which was the wine steward, is set free after 3 days, and the Sar HaOfim, I think he's called, who was the baker, also tells Joseph but the dream, and sort of each have a dream, and there's three items. And Yosef translate that as to say, in 3 days, this is going to happen. And of course, the baker gets decapitated by Paro, and the bartender is reinstated and goes back to work. And
this is exciting. They should make a movie out of this.
It's like every chapter of this parsha could be its own movie.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Adam, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Sorry it's a little short today. It's been a long one.
Yeah, I understand. Anyway, hey, listen, it's a chag.
For sure. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Reminder, special choral Shabbat this Shabbat morning. We welcome back members of our choir, and for Hallel and a bunch of Shar Zion's beautiful choral music.
We're looking forward.
Great. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.